I would love, I think we have a decent size here. We've heard a little bit from the project team, both the county side and the consultants, and I'd welcome here real quick anyone who'd like to chime in and just kind of say, your name and kind of what your interest is, obviously within East County, and kind of fill in the blank here on the screen. That I want our transportation system too. That kind of helps give us a little bit of a grounding and understanding of where everyone's coming from. So it's totally fine if you want to skip this and not participate, but just want to give you the chance. So I'll ask first if there's any volunteers, and if not, I might call on a few folks. But anybody want to volunteer? I want our transportation system to fill in the blank. Tyler.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for putting this together this evening. My name is Tyler Deems. I'm the city manager for the city of Sandy. And my interest in participating in this process this evening is one, just to learn more about next steps from the county's perspective and ideally get a better understanding of how, excuse me, how cities will be integrated in this process to ensure that the future TSP really aligns our local goals with Clackamas County's larger regional goals. We are a smaller city in the rural area. Certainly, East County is a very large geographic perspective, and I want to make sure that Sandy doesn't get lost in the shuffle of things as you're identifying projects for the entirety of Clackamas County.
Absolutely. That's a great point there. And we'll touch a tiny bit on coordination this evening, but part of what we're doing in the project is setting up a number of different kind of committees and touch points. And really thank you for your participation this evening for Sandy. And yes, we'll make sure that we circle back with you on ways to make sure that we do clarify if there's any kind of confusion around how we generally were focusing on unincorporated areas, but we really want to make that coordination with all the cities of all sizes and urbanized areas as closely coordinated as possible, so nothing gets left behind and fills in a gap. Um, Anyone else want to volunteer to chime in and say hello?
Yeah, can we just speak? You hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Les.
Okay, just didn't know if I had to raise my hand. Les Poole, I've been a real advocate for the Sunrise Corridor, and I know that's a topic of high priority. Um, my concern or my input is that we tend to think of ourselves in terms of transit or individual users when the distribution aspects of this whole plan are so critical. And I don't need to tell anyone here that Highway 212 is a parking lot through Damascus. I know we can't fix that right now, but the connectivity between the growing corridor out in southeast, or yeah, southeast Gresham, the whole corridor through Damascus and into Happy Valley is exploding. And we need to think in terms of keeping our economy moving and not losing sight of the importance and the safety requirements that trucking and industry require.
Gotcha. Very understand less. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the Sunrise Corridor is definitely a big one on the county's radar, and will definitely be a part of this work. And I really appreciate your call out for economic development and freight and movement. I really appreciate that. Anyone else want to
If
volunteer?
I
Yep. Go ahead, Steve.
if I may, I haven't been able to find my raise your hand button yet. So this is my first time on this computer, so it's a whole new experience for me. But thank you for having this meeting. I'm Steve Bates. I'm from Boring. I appreciate what Les just shared. I agree with him, but let's be perfectly clear that Damascus isn't the only one that's being impacted by the Southeast Gresham growth. Boring's traffic is becoming greater and greater. I know you guys have a plan for Amaziger and 224. We need some help with Kelso Road. Kelso Road's starting to become a problem. That there's a number of county roads here in the Boring area that that will need expansion as time goes on, and we're talking 20 years from now. And so that needs to be part of the equation as well.
Thank you very much. Definitely appreciate that. Thanks for chiming in, Steve. Kathleen, I see the hands there. Any interest in going next, Kathleen? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Kathleen Walker. I'm the Sandy mayor, and I'll kind of start off with my Sandy mayor comments first. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said to date, and I believe that the Sunrise Corridor and getting that corridor through there so it's a little bit easier to get to Sandy would really be helpful for a lot of Sandy residents, but for economic development back and forth. There's also quite a few. We just recently completed our TSP in Sandy in 2022, 23, and so we're looking to kind of figure out how to meld this effort with our effort. And I know Tyler has some priorities that he wants to kind of bring forward that will help us deal with some of the connection issues of what we'd like to do to what's needed for us to kind of grow beyond into the unincorporated area. Of course, it's still in the urban growth boundary, but it's at this point unincorporated. So yeah, I'm a little bit confused. The one question I would have for you, Jeff, is Damascus part of the East County area? Your map is a little rough, and Happy Valley's a separate area, but it's like different documents I see kind of seem to lump Happy Valley and a lot of those other places together. Whereas, yeah, I just can't tell. So, can you kind of clarify that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. We also have not sure yet if we've pasted in the link. We have an interactive mapping feature that helps to show the different boundaries of the GSAs.
Oh, great.
Um,
Okay.
and so
That'd be helpful.
yeah, we'll definitely plug that in there.
Okay.
So the Damascus area is within what we were calling the Greater Clackamas Regional Center East. And
Okay.
so
All right.
it is the one just to the
Right.
the west of
Okay.
the East County focus. But yeah,
Okay.
happy to make sure that
Yeah.
those interests back and forth are captured here.
Yeah, just when we're kind of identifying projects and all. The other thing I will kind of put on a different hat now, and this is one that I've worked with uh, the bikeway and pedestrian village plan up in the villages of Mount Hood. I've worked on for the Forest Service, working on trails plans. I work with Metro and Northwest Trails Alliance and a lot of other partners on regional trails. And there's been a huge increase in the attention, funds, and efforts put forward to doing town-to-town linkages for regional trails in the Columbia Gorge. And I'd like to see, there's a thing called a Mount Hood to Rose City trail corridor that was actually, we put it in for a huge, I don't want to say a $45 million grant back in the Tiger grant days where they were trying to find projects that had huge amounts of money. So we put that in. Of course, we weren't anywhere near shovel ready and we didn't get it, and that's okay. But it did, Blumenauer and those other folks really did get excited about it. And so it's got some legs. It's, regional trails can be, we haven't kind of brought it up since the whole COVID and, Springwater corridor issues and things like that. And that's understandable. So, but I think when we're looking at 2045, it's time to kind of identify this potential project. It was in the Metro Regional Trails linkages. So yeah, we can talk more about that at another date or something, but I'd like to sit down and I've got some PowerPoint presentations and all that were developed quite a few years ago to kind of articulate what the potential opportunities are. It's mostly just kind of filling in gaps in the linkages. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing both hats as the mayor and your work there for trails. Yeah, that's a good reminder. We're definitely looking 20 years out. So yes, let's think both the needs we know of today as well as how we expect growth to happen into the next 20 years. Anyone
Yeah, and
else?
these are not recreational trails to speak of. They're more kind of transportational trails. So I know the difference between those two. So this would be more multi-use to be able to be used for transportation, but also economic development for tourism and all, like in the
Yeah,
gorge. Thanks.
absolutely. Perfect. Thank you very much. Anyone else interested in going next? I'll pause just a minute. I don't want to force anybody to. That's all right if you just want to listen in. We'll also have a chance later, kind of breakout rooms, but okay, no worries if not. So maybe we'll keep rolling along, and once we get into smaller breakout rooms, that's also a chance to share anything that we'd like. I forget here, Russ and Mark, are we able to play the video? Is that right?
Yes, I
Excellent.
believe we have it set up that way. Let me just double check. It looks like that will,
Just have a short little video link.
yeah.
It's time to update Clackamas County's transportation system plan. This video explainer will share what a transportation system plan does, why it is important in our lives, and how you can get involved. Transportation affects us all in countless ways. Our ability to reliably get to work or school, our access to shopping and errands, our walking and biking paths for recreation, and how goods and freight can reach us. To support all of our transportation needs, we plan for how we manage and improve our network of roads, bridges, sidewalks, and freight routes for the future to serve Clackamas County residents and businesses. We also plan for programs that improve safety through driver education and programs to create more travel options for residents, such as our Clackamas Connect shuttles. Planning for our future transportation system takes a lot of effort. It involves closely studying our current conditions, forecasting growth and changes likely to occur throughout the county, engaging with the public to better understand our needs, designing for those future needs, considering and refining costs, and then prioritizing and making tough choices ahead. This total process is what makes up a transportation system plan that helps us look 20 years into the future. Transportation projects take a lot of time and resources to build or create, and we often have more projects and more needs than resources available. So how do we decide what to prioritize and who decides? It starts with a transportation system plan, and those who participate have a key role in helping shape our future. We invite you to help us create this plan together.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Mark. We have created this video that's a little longer and a few others that really just help give people a few different ways to learn about what the system is. Crystal, I see your hand up. If you don't mind, I'll just touch on this slide real quick and then give you the chance to say hello and do an intro. Kind of as Mike was mentioning there, Mike Besner's kind of one of our directors of transportation and development. Um, so he was helping to really, he's got a lot of experience here at the county and helping to introduce that video segment for us. We'll make sure and send out all of those for those interested. Um, just a brief reminder, as mentioned, we have a lot of, miles of paved roads, as all of you know, especially, thinking of the scale of East County, over 200 miles of paths and bike lanes and six different transit agencies, several airports, and of course a river ferry as well pictured there. So, this is a multimodal effort. We're not focused on just one and not the other. So we really are looking at kind of all the assets we have. Crystal, would you like to say hello and give a quick intro?
Yeah, hi, my name's Crystal Rojas. I live in the Damascus area. I also go every day down to Sandy area to take my child for childcare. So one of the things my biggest concerns is safety around the area, specifically around 223rd Avenue dur within the school zone. I've noticed so many cars speeding through within the last year. I've noticed a few cops here and there patrolling on that, which is great. Kids, obviously you can't walk through there, but there are times where there's sports events or school events and children are, um, I mean, not children, staff, no, parents have to park outside on the street. And that is very unsafe to, in general, have a child walk through those streets. And also on Southeast Sunnyside Road, getting close to Highway 212. The traffic there has been increasing a lot. Um, I've noticed semi trucks going through there and trying to turn around, which is not ideal for our two-lane road. Um, and it's highly used by emergency vehicles, that being police, fire department, ambulances, and there's barely any room to get through. I've also witnessed quite a few animals get hit on that road as well. So it is a big safety concern. I've also noticed an increase in foot traffic. So that's something new I've noticed within the last year. So just wanted to pull out safety concerns. I know a lot of us have concerns about Highway 212, but that's another thing. Thank
Got
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Crystal. Really appreciate that. And we're taking notes, and we'll also a little bit later kind of make sure and show everyone how you can also kind of insert comments that are location specific too. But we'll take note of that for 223rd and everything you mentioned there. Kind of just one more slide here, and then going to pass the mic over to the consulting team to help kind of show a little bit more of what we're up to. But this really is that time, just as we're saying now, to think about the future. So the TSP is a 20-year plan for all of the needs that we foresee kind of now and into the future. It does touch on goals and policies as well as projects. So it's not one and leaving out the other, but it's all of those pieces. But basically, many of us do think about the TSP as kind of resulting in a project list. And so we will be collecting all of this kind of needs and data and inputs and forecasted growth, and that'll all point us towards project lists. And those, as Mike mentioned in the short video clip, it'll come down to tough choices of priorities. Our current plan that we do have kind of still live and in effect was adopted in 2013. So it's been just over 10 years. Typically, cities and counties update these plans every 10 years or so because we know things change and we have to just sharpen the pencils and use all of our updated data. Um, and again, we really are focused here at the county scale on the unincorporated areas mostly. But of course, we know there's also population centers and lots of destinations within the incorporated areas. So we work a lot on coordination, both at the staff level and all levels. So we do closely coordinate with cities and want to make sure if we're not touching anyone just yet, that we're soon to do that as we have a lot of time ahead of us still. So with that, I think I'll pass it over to Mark.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Get to the next slide. So I'm going to kind of take us a little bit deeper into the mechanics of the developing the transportation system plan update. And then we'll work into the vision and goals, and then we'll get into our workshop part of tonight's exercise. So the process as we are in now is really to take the vision and goals from the 2013 transportation system plan, review those, make slight changes, and we'll look at those here in a second. And then from that, start reviewing our system, both from a technical standpoint, doing traffic counts, looking at crash data, and then through meetings like tonight, understanding community needs. You all walk, roll, and drive throughout the community and understand the issues. So we want to pull that in. And we're over the next 6 weeks have a virtual open house that will show here later that you can participate and give feedback both on the vision and goals and the projects themselves. So the next piece is once we understand those needs, is identifying potential projects or solutions to meet those needs over the next 20 years. Once we do that, then we go through and prioritize projects. We only have so much funding based on tax dollars that come in. So we group the projects into what we call 3 tiers. Tier 1 is fiscally constrained tier. So that is based on current funding and projected funding, what we believe we could fund in the next 20 years. Tier 2 is projects that are kind of that next step but aren't currently estimated to occur in that available funding. And then tier 3 are long-term projects. We see a need, and it might be for future development to accommodate, or just it's a long-term need, but it's a lower priority. So there'll be 3 tiers of projects and priorities as we go through the process. And then finally, as we get agreement through the public impact or public feedback through the advisory committees. We'll document that, and then a year from now, come up with a draft updated transportation system plan to go through public hearings and be adopted, and then to replace the 2013 transportation system plan that Jeff referred to. So to help us do that, we've broken the county up into 6 geographic subareas. In 2013, we had 5. We decided the Clackamas Regional Center industrial area, a lot of stuff going on that. So we divided it east-west on the 205 break. So there's now 6 geographic areas to allow us to get down in this large county, at least at a little bit more manageable level, and meet people where they are and really talk about the transportation needs within those geographic areas. So these are the geographic areas, and I'll just zoom in here so you hopefully can see it on the screen. So we have East County that we're talking about this evening. We have Southwest, which has Molalla and Canby. We have Northwest out by Wilsonville, and then we work up into the areas of the greater McLaughlin area you see here in the orange. And then we got the Clackamas Regional Center West, which is west of 205. And then, like we were talking earlier, we have Happy Valley, Damascus, which is in that Clackamas Regional Center East area. All the areas, and I know we have the mayor and staff from Sandy. So all the cities, we talked about unincorporated, so incorporated or inside the city's urban growth boundaries, those transportation projects and needs, be it county facilities, ODOT facilities, or city facilities, are documented within the city's TSPs themselves. And so we don't have confusion and overlap. The county's TSP stays outside of that in the unincorporated areas for that point. So this evening, we're going to focus here on the east side, and then there's a series of meetings over the next 2 weeks that we'll work through the other 5 geographic sub areas, and we'll give you the schedule for that a little bit later here in the presentation. So Mike in the video kind of went through this of you got to figure out what's happening today, what's going to happen in the future based on population and employment growth. Take that information, engage with the public, figure out the needs of those projects, consider the costs, and then prioritize, and then come up with an updated transportation system plan. So where are we at in the process? This is about a 22, 23-month process. We started back last summer, I guess, now that we're in 26. Had a number of technical advisory committees, and those are members from city staffs, county staff, ODOT, TriMet, Metro. And then we have a project advisory committee, which is made up of a cross-section of population. They were folks that applied to be on that and then selected by the Board of County Commissioners to help guide the process. And they also have geographic representation. So each of the geographic areas has at least 2 members on the project advisory committee as we go through. And we're now in this first stage as we've gone through the kickoff tasks and existing and future conditions of really introducing the projects, the needs, and getting feedback on needs. And as we continue through the process, we'll come back in the spring in another series of workshops and also public open houses on the initial set of projects and the initial priorities and get feedback on that. And then we'll work through the summer and fall and come back late next year with another set of meetings with the geographic sub areas on here are those recommended tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 project lists. Get feedback, refine, and then go to public hearings and adoptions with this County Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners in the first quarter of 2027. So kind of how the public engagement works to just give you a sense of it. We have continuous public engagement and we're out in the community starting now, but we'll have pop-ups. We'll meet people where they are. We'll have the virtual open houses. We'll have social media. And through that, then we have a little bit more formal pieces. We have the geographic sub-area meetings, and those will meet three times for each geographic subarea throughout the process. We have the technical advisory committee that I mentioned earlier. This is mostly staff from a lot of the agencies that manage or operate transportation facilities within the county. And then we have that public advisory committee that all feeds in information to the project management team, which is made up of a number of the staff that are here tonight from the county, Jeff, Anthony, Lee, and others. And then they manage the overall project, manage us as the consultants, and ultimately make the recommendation to the Planning Commission, who then will hold public hearings. And then they'll make either one of three decisions. They will say, this is not quite right, and refer it back to staff. They may adopt it as is and recommend its approval to the Board of County Commissioners, or they may recommend it with changes to the county commissioners. So they have three options. Once that goes to county commissioners, another round of hearings, and they have kind of the same opportunities. They can reverse or revert it back to staff for more work. They can adopt as is, or they can adopt with amendments to it. And then once they adopt, that becomes the guidebook and roadmap for the next 20 years on how the county prioritizes projects, which projects, and how we shape the community going forward through that process. All right, I don't see any questions, so we'll keep going. So public engagement, we talked about a number of the other elements kind of here earlier, but we try to tailor all this to meet both the urban and rural areas of the county. You'll see in the virtual open house, we have 4 languages. We try to meet all the accessibility challenges and really meet people where they're at. Go visit those locations and events throughout the year and provide as many opportunities for people to understand and comment on the transportation system plan update. So switching a little bit away from process into the current draft vision. Oh, Kathleen has a question, so I'll stop there. Kathleen, go ahead.
Yeah, just since we're still in the public involvement process, we have 2 residents that were selected for the public advisory committee. One is up in Government Camp, and I believe one's out on like Wildcat Mountain or something like that. Anyhow, I've never heard of them, and I don't know I don't really know of them. How are they reaching out to the unincorporated residents to get their input, or at least let those residents know about this project?
Yes, their role is not. They've been asked to provide friends, colleagues, and others comments. It's really county staff and the consultant staff's responsibility to do the outreach and go out there. They're more to kind of take the information in and be representatives of the public across the entire county and help guide and say, yeah, as we look at this and we're prioritizing projects, maybe we want geographic balance. There's some top priorities, for instance, the sunrise. So they're just more of a sounding board than an active participant in trying to get feedback themselves.
Yeah, just a brief addition as well. We hope that many of the PAC members do act as that kind of link to any types of groups they do bring, to the table or represent. But we also have to kind of acknowledge they're just one person and don't always, represent a whole population of people. So it is a little bit of a tough balance. But we do ask them to help share among their networks and try to think with their hat on, representing a certain GSA, but definitely want to balance that with knowing they're just one person. But happy for your thoughts on that, Kathleen. And one thing we're also doing is kind of building an ongoing list of whether it's groups or CPOs and different ways that we can kind of continue to get the word out. So would definitely appreciate and take any feedback you have on that front.
Right. All right. Any other questions on kind of process? Otherwise, we will move into the draft vision and goals. Okay. So the vision, back in 2013, there was a lot of effort on the county, on the project advisory committee, and the public to really look at what the vision of the transportation system could be. So they came up with this vision statement and it's kind of stood the test of time. There's a lot of apple pie in this approach, but we've gotten feedback from the advisory committee, both advisory committees, and are also asking over the next 6 weeks for the public virtual open house for comments on this. So if you see this here and like, oh, there should be another word in it, or I'd like to see this, we definitely appreciate you going on to the virtual open house, and we'll show that here momentarily to provide comments on that. But this is the vision, and we will kind of get to a point of locking that in probably in about early March after we get through the public meetings, hear all the comments, and say, are we going in the right direction? And do we need to make any unique changes to that? So that's the vision. So that's the highest level. And then the next level is goals. And here we have 6 overall goals. And again, back in 2013, there was 6 goals developed. As we've gone through this past fall and got feedback, while there's no ranking or priority, people really wanted to see safety and health, paramount, that came through, and they really wanted to see that kind of in that first spot, along with fiscal responsibility, on how we spend our money within the county. Beyond that, these 6 goals are they are consistent with what was adopted in 2023, and there was just some minor changes. So, for instance, on the local business and jobs, the PAC wanted to see visitors added. So it used to say businesses and residents. Now it's businesses, visitors, and residents. So this helps set the structure that then ties into objectives and scoring criteria that allow us to then score all the projects, or based on the needs and developed of projects, we score all those initially to kind of put them in an initial prioritization. And then that goes through the public process and feedback. But this kind of provides that framework on, what projects that, may meet all 6 goals. They may rise a little bit more to the top initially, but again, you can only use so much science, and then you got to have a little bit of a political process to get to those highest priority projects, or those tier 1 projects that you want to fund within the next 20 years. So these are our 6 sets of goals and the statements that go with that. And again, these are on the virtual open house, and we appreciate feedback on these goals as we go forward. So before I step off of vision and goals, any questions or anything that just jumps out, man, you're missing X, Y, or Z. Otherwise, we'll move into the workshop session here momentarily. All right. So I think the link is there for the virtual open house. If you have your smartphone and you're sitting at home, you can put your camera to this QR code, and you'll get a box like this will stop or pop up, and we'll jump into that momentarily. But wanted to walk through this, and then we'll segue into our workshop session this evening. But it allows us to get both feedback on the vision and goals, and then the needs that you see or have been identified in the past to verify if those needs are still there. And we'll talk a little bit more about what a transportation need is here in a second. And then who are we hearing from? So it asks a little bit about who is commenting, just to give a sense of, are we getting a lot of representation from East County, or is it all coming from the greater McLaughlin area and so forth? So that's the virtual open house. And I'm going to go a few more slides. So tonight, again, we're working on East County in that area in the green. And really, the piece in this workshop that we're going to talk about is, what are the needs that you're seeing out there? And I meant earlier, I think it was Steve that talked about, Kelso Road. I think Kathleen talked about 212. Actually, most of you talked about 212 and Sunrise. But those are transportation needs. Either there's a capacity congestion, and we need more capacity to service that, or there's a safety need, or something like that. So needs are defined in two different ways. So one's a deficiency. So it's you have a facility, but it's not operating as we want it to operate. And so that could be an intersection that's over capacity. And when we say over capacity is, let's say you come to a stoplight, it turns red, it turns green, and it turns red again, and you still haven't got through. All right, that's not meeting the performance of what we want. You should be able to get through on that initial green from that. A gap is when we have something that's missing. So you're walking down the street and there may be a 200-foot gap in the sidewalk. Or you're walking down the street on a sidewalk and there's a telephone in the middle that doesn't allow a wheelchair to go around. So that's not a gap, it's a deficiency. So you have the sidewalk, but it's not operating as you want it to operate. So think about it in that construct. It's really what drives you crazy as you walk or bicycle or drive, or where you feel unsafe in that nature. Those are generally what transportation needs are at the end of the day. So we're going to jump into the interactive map portion. And Jeff, I was just looking, I think we have a small enough group we can probably stay in one room. Is that the sense? I haven't seen if more of added, but should we go that way, do you think?
Yeah, flexible. We intent here, depending on interest, we have the ability to kind of break out in smaller rooms, maybe two different rooms if folks haven't been able to chime in, but we're also maybe a small enough group that if folks are fine with it, we can do this all together, just kind of in one room. But the main point is to make sure that we do get a chance to kind of see a preview of the tool and that you can jump in and ask questions and understand how to use it. So I think it's fine with me to stay in one room here, unless anybody feels otherwise, chime in or drop a note into the chat. But happy to stay here together.
Let's see, Kathleen.
I haven't been able to see any of the information you're sharing on the screen, and I don't know if I'm the only one. I might be. I thought I know how to do multi-screen, all that.
Yeah, let's make sure. So I think it might just be the way that Zoom is set up. There's some options. So depending on if you're on a kind of computer or tablet or phone, but there should be a view option where you can
Right. I'm used to Zoom, and
sorry. Let's double check. Anybody else having that problem? Can everybody see the slides? Yeah. Nicole's good. Tyler's good. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Sorry,
right. It's just
Kathleen.
me. All right. Sorry. I'll figure it out.
Well, no, we can, if you want, though, we want to make sure you're able to kind of see it. We can try to troubleshoot here on the fly too.
Oh, that's okay.
Kathleen, are you able to see the chat? So were you able to get the link? Okay. I think if you're able to get the link and open up the website, you should open it up and it'll say, welcome to the virtual open house. Are you seeing that?
In the chat?
Yeah, Russ, is it in the chat?
Yeah.
It's under the one that Russ Doubleday sent?
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, if you hit that, and then you'll see what we're seeing.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, it should say welcome, and you'll see on that first page, as I think the rest of the group is saying, it'll pop up, and at the bottom it'll have Spanish, Russian, and Ukrainian options. And then get started. We'll just continue you in the English version of that piece. So we'll just walk you through the overall open house, and then we're really going to focus on the maps, but just to give you all a sense of how this is there. And this is up live for everybody, and it'll run through the mid of February. So you can come back to this after this evening and provide additional comments at your leisure, and share the link with friends and family and colleagues all around. So on the first page, it really talks about what the TSP is. So a lot of what we talked about earlier for people that are not familiar with what a transportation system plan is, this really gets to that. The next page, like we talked about, is the vision and goals. And you can see here on the left side, we have the vision and those goals. And then on the right side, we want people to kind of pick what are the most important goals to them. So pick their top 3 of what they want. And then what do the goals mean to you? Do you think there's anything missing? So as I mentioned earlier, this is where we want to get that feedback from you all and others just to make sure we're not missing anything, or do we need to make some tweaks? Because over time, when big decisions are made within the county, the Board of Commissioners comes back to this vision statement and goals, and that helps guide them, as well as staff in making decisions when you come to those forks in the road. So it's really important we get these right. So this is where you can provide those comments and submit those comments, and those were recorded. And then we will go through all those comments and say, oh, okay, there's this theme of X, and let's make sure we get that incorporated in some manner into the goals or into the vision. So that's the second page. The transportation needs, which is what we're going to focus on in the workshop, it again defines kind of what those needs are, and then we're going to work on this interactive map here, and I'll come back to this in a second. But this is where this is where you can really make some impacts and help us out in really understanding what's going on in East County. But we'll come back to that in just a second. I want to walk through the rest of this. Then there's the About You page, and you'll see this pop up in a second. So, what's your transportation mode? Where do you live? Which one of those geographic sub areas? Where do you work? Just so we get a sense of the people and how they're working within the transportation system. And then there's a next steps piece on where we're going that will then take you back to the overall website for the project itself. So that's the virtual open house. Again, would appreciate as much as you can share the wealth on this and get it out to people, because this is where we get the feedback over time. So Kathleen, if you're going with us, we're going to go back to room 3, transportation needs. And down at the bottom, you'll see how to use an interactive map feature. And there's actually a video, and I think Anthony does such a good job on here. He's a great actor. We're going to watch a little bit of this video because I think it's a good primer for folks to just see how to use this, and then we'll go in and play with it. And we can have some conversations as a group as we go in there. So with that, I'll hit the video and we'll listen to Anthony.
Thank you for participating in our mapping exercise with the Clackamas County Transportation System Plan update. This video will walk you through how to add your comments and concerns on the virtual map. Before we get started, we recommend clicking Enable Map Scroll while doing this map exercise. This allows you to zoom in and out with your mouse wheel, much like you'd be able to do on Google Maps or other online maps. First, let's look at how to leave comments and concerns on the map. Start by clicking Click to Start a Comment in the bottom left corner. A small gray dot will appear under your cursor. Move to where you want to leave your comment on the map. Zoom in as needed, either using your mouse scroll wheel or the zoom controls on the top left. Click where you'd like to leave your comment. For this particular example, I'm going to create a comment that states a desire for a better crosswalk at the intersection of River Road and Courtney Avenue in the greater McLaughlin area. In reality, this is an actual project that Clackamas County has received funding for through a state grant, but it will be our example for today. This project was once noted on a comment map, just like this one you are in now. When you click, an interface will pop up on the left that allows you to provide details. Adding your name is optional. Select the type of transportation that your comment applies to. One option is all modes. In this case, I'll select pedestrian. Then choose the particular need for this location. I'll select safety, as my crosswalk example would make it easier and safer for folks to cross the street here. Operational needs could refer to places where there are traffic delay for vehicles, or where a turn lane is needed. Gap could refer to where we are missing infrastructure entirely, such as a stretch of missing sidewalk. Or you could always select Other and add comments below. Finally, I'll add my comment about what I'd like to see here. Please add a marked crosswalk here to help people cross the road. I'll click submit and my comment is confirmed. It's possible that you might have a comment that feels hard to pin down to a single point. For example, if a long stretch of road needs improvements, or if an entire neighborhood area needs sidewalks, it might be hard to choose a single point to drop onto the map. In these cases, we encourage you to drop the point into a logical or reasonable location for that concern, and then add a comment that explains your thoughts further. All comments will be reviewed thoroughly at the end of the process, and we'll be able to determine which of the comments apply to broader areas. We'll call out a few other things in the mapping interface. A public comment list is seen on the left. This shows all comments that have been previously submitted by others. You have the ability to scroll through and read these. As you browse the map, you will notice other comments already left by users, denoted by the pins. You may agree with some of these comments. For example, this comment suggests that Clackamas County focus on filling the gap in the I-205 multi-use path. After I click into the comment, I may choose to show my support by clicking the like button instead of providing a separate comment. The second thing you'll notice is the legend on the right. Here you'll see the symbols that correspond with what you're seeing on the map. If you'd like to adjust what you're seeing on the map, click the Layers button, which looks like a stack of squares, and adjust the visibility by clicking the layers. The light blue dots and lines show projects that were identified in the last transportation system plan or other previous transportation plans. These help to give context for issues that are already known. The purple dots show intersections that we already know pose a problem in terms of being over capacity during the day. And gold dots show intersections that we expect to be over capacity in the next 20 years, based on projected growth in the county. Thank you for providing your comments. And if you have any questions, we recommend reaching out to us at TSP update.
All right, so let's just jump in here to the map. So Anthony covered the majority of this, but we'll just move a little bit out here to East County. Obviously, don't have a lot of comments now, but just for instance, is we get to a location by the villages. We can hit the dot, and here's the project that was identified in the 2013 TSP. So at US 26 Brightwood Loop, at a westbound right turn lane. So that's how you see those previous identified projects. So you can either be segments or intersections. And then as Anthony talked about, the purple are difficulties today, and the brown is difficulties expected by year 2045. So I'll stop there and just see if folks have questions, how this works. And we don't need to hold you here, but maybe some of you are already in and adding comments as we go. But really, this is the ability for us to crowdsource comments throughout the county, and then also, from the like buttons, figure out, oh, there's a lot of people, for instance, that want the sunrise and so forth. So maybe I'll just stop there and just open it up for questions on the overall open house or the comment map itself. I don't know, Jeff, Anthony, anything we missed for the group?
I think you both have covered it very well. Anthony's video and Mark's mentions. Just a brief reminder for anyone who, did comment earlier in your introductory comments. I'm taking notes and we're recording the meeting, but we also, if you're able, really encourage you to leave those dots on the map and give that input in your own words, just to make sure that way others can see it too, kind of in real time, and folks could kind of build from your ideas as well. So Thank you. But yeah, any questions at all on how the tool works or anything like that?
Hi, Les Poole. I'm sitting in my car at the side of the road in the dark as this is going on. It's a wonderful thing to have a phone like this. But
Mhm.
as far as using the map right now, it's not practical. But I appreciate your explaining it. And will we be able to, two things. One, will we be able to go back in the future beyond this? In other words, is the idea that we would be able to come in be after this meeting and go through the process of locating and making
Yeah.
suggestions. Is that right?
Yes, this will be open through middle of February. I think it's February 16th is when we'll close the virtual open house. So yeah, it's open, yeah, roughly 6 more weeks.
Okay, okay. Because there's an area that I'll certainly be commenting on, and Mr. Bates spoke about boring. We obviously talked about Highway 212 and 212 and Sunnyside Road, 212 and Foster is a growing nightmare, and I'll submit something after the meeting about that. I may get interrupted. I'm waiting for a call. I do want to mention one, there's a wild card in transportation planning for the county, and that is, of all things, the interstate bridge replacement. They're looking at very high tolls. The county has a policy that we need to protect 205, and we need consideration from ODOT and from planners in the future because as they go to work on that monstrous new bridge someday, and with the tolls they're suggesting, there's going to be a tremendous amount of diversion traffic into East County and into the Clackamas corridor, which we won't be able to accommodate. Um, and the county probably still has in effect a policy from 2013 regarding consideration for tolling, how it would affect 205, because it's a big one. So a little
Mhm.
bit out of the weeds, but definitely something to consider. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great. Yeah.
thank you, Les. I really appreciate that. This is Jeff. I'll jump in just kind of from the county side. Your comments really helpful and very applicable. From several different things come to mind, and there are lots of challenges with various projects around the region. Part of our work at the county and everyone, all of you too, is kind of getting along with your neighbors and working together as a region, a state, and a bi-state for IBR. So yes, there have been some news headlines about costs of different projects and about how we fund transportation in the future. So there's a lot of fluidity there, but definitely recommend to make sure if you can, as we mentioned, later when you're in a safe spot and have time to do so, log those comments and concerns. We do have some kind of policy statements from the Board of County Commissioners regarding tolling. We do also at the same time kind of tackle some of those issues through a lot of regional coordination meetings at various bodies of folks. And so, yes, I really appreciate your comments there. We definitely will, part of this effort will be looking a little bit at our anticipated funding into the future. So the way we phrase it is anticipated funding that we think we'll receive and kind of what we can afford into the future. And so um, some of that is constrained financially. So we have to, in some locations within the county, do a little more closer work to kind of make sure that we're prioritizing things that we can afford based on anticipated funding. And then there's also kind of a future tier where we're able to capture ideas of projects and don't have to spend quite as much time cost estimating those, but we're kind of allowed to acknowledge and carry those even if we don't quite really know all the details or the funding mechanisms. So sorry, that's a little bit of a long response, but just wanted to chime in there that the issues you mentioned are very good and evolving, and some of them have been in the works for decades and maybe still haven't come to fruition, and they may still have a decade or two in front of them. But really appreciate that and encourage you to log that in when you are able.
Well, thank you. Yeah, money is a big issue, and that's the other obvious, wild card out there. I appreciate your response.
Great. Thanks, Les. Other questions of how the system works? Let's see.
I don't have my hand. I haven't found the
Go for it,
picture
Steve.
to hit my hand up. So, but I do have a question because, 40 years ago, Sunnyside Road was a two-lane road and it was windy. And of course, Happy Valley wasn't there. Happy Valley was just a community of 3,000 people. Uh,
Mhm.
but then Commissioner Kennemer and the commission at that time actually said, okay, well, let's make Sunnyside Road a four-lane highway. And that's what they did.
Yep.
We need to do that in East County. There
Mhm.
needs to be a market road that is Clackamas County's. And, you guys are depending on ODOT with 212 and 224. We need a market road that actually extends Sunnyside Road, goes out to 242nd, and then crosses over uh, Deep Creek onto Kelso Road. And then we've got a market road that actually connects Happy Valley with Sandy because Kelso Road hooks up with Highway 26 very easily. And I don't see anybody sitting down and actually dreaming like this, like they did 40 years ago. I realize money's a problem, but if you don't sit and actually plan things out and look at things and say, well, this is what we should do, then you start saying, well, that's what we're going to do. And then you start finding the sources for funding of it. So that's my point. And I realize that people over on McLaughlin, they need crosswalks and they need sidewalks. East County needs a market road that is going to relieve the traffic in Damascus and also in Boring. And that's what I have to say. And I don't know how else to say it, but we need to have some forward thinking like that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Great comments, and that's what this process is for. We talked about identifying projects, programs. The other part is studies. So studies like that of, where would you put that corridor and how would you develop it? So those go into transportation system plans. So yeah, great comment.
Yeah, one small brief addition in addition to that word studies, that we definitely want to capture those ideas, those big ideas that might still need some studying and figuring out. Even for some of our larger projects, we end up having to think of them in phases, because sometimes one project alone has a really big price tag, and it's not always feasible anyway to do it all at once, and so often things do get broken up into phases, which can involve the study. So I appreciate your comment, Steve. I do think this is the time to make sure and think big. We do want to have that visionary conversation and ideas and get those comments, and then we'll have to kind of deal with how to mesh that up where maybe it gets broken up into phases or studies, but we want to act on that. So we do have to balance kind of fiscal responsibility in the near term with making sure we do still move forward larger visions. So this is that early stage. We want all those ideas logged in and want to see support for it. So appreciate that.
Right. I see Kathleen had a question in the chat. Are the existing projects and proposed projects in the existing action plans that are showing up on the interactive maps? And yes, those projects for the most part are either in the adopted 2013 transportation system plan or some additional plans that have been developed since 2013, like the Clackamas Bike Walk plan, the Sunrise Refinement Plan, the Damascus Mobility Plan, and there's a few others, some of the transit plans. But yeah, all the projects you see there have been adopted in a form or fashion by the county and or other agencies that you're seeing.
Does that include the villages, Mount Hood villages bikeway and pedestrian plan, do you think?
It does. I'm not sure if that's mapped in here or not.
Okay,
Some
just
of that
curious.
mapping still needs to be updated on the
Yeah.
GIS system, but
Okay.
I don't know exactly on
Yeah.
that. Kathleen, I'd have to check.
Yeah, I know they're working on that one there on Salmon River Road or over there by the school. Okay, and there was I was trying to, so on the old TSP, it has that table you're talking about of all the projects and what's the high priority with funding, available funding, all that's in the appendix of the TSP from 2013.
Correct. And And just to be clear, nothing holds us to those going forward. So
Right.
as we get into the spring and then later in the summer, all those projects are back in, on the table again, and we will reprioritize. And so there could be tier one projects that fall out altogether or become tier three, or tier three projects that become tier one, or new projects that didn't exist in 2023. So those are the rule of the land right
Yeah.
now, but through
Okay.
this process, they can be updated.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to be able to see what was the priorities on this interactive map to kind of know, yeah, it probably is still a priority, but like you said, it might change in priority ranking. So thanks. Great job.
Great, thank you. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise,
Yeah, we got a hand up
oh,
from Jennifer and then Tyler after Jennifer.
okay. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hey, thanks for hosting these. I really appreciate it. I live in Boring. I'm not on a city council or anything. I'm just a concerned citizen. But I want to piggyback off of what Steve was just saying that I went to the Boring CPO meeting last month when they had a representative from ODOT. Excuse me, and that was um, kind of as a follow-up to the fatalities that we had had at Kelso, or excuse me, Ritchie and 212. And it was a little discouraging because the guy from ODOT was very apologetic. He has sympathized with us, all those things. He said, you know, 3 fatalities basically in the 10-year period that they analyze it was not enough to crack their top 1,600 priorities throughout the state. And, acknowledge that there is a lot more traffic on 212, because it's a direct thoroughfare and all of that. And it was just kind of like, sorry, guys, tough luck kind of thing. And I'm hoping that we can get more from Clackamas County. And I understand where he's coming from. I get it. It's a big state, lots of roads. But I'm not quite sure how to say this. It was discouraging, when it's those high priority, high impact areas are controlled by ODOT.
Yep.
But what can Clackamas County do to help us? Like I'm not even entirely sure where Clackamas County ends and ODOT starts, to be honest.
Yeah.
And like somebody at the meeting had asked, well, what about the roundabout? And he's like, oh, that's Clackamas County. Like people don't know where that boundary is to even start with, to know what to ask for.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to emphasize, we're little unincorporated communities, but we have the impact of the metro area. And I think that gets lost on people. We have the mountain traffic, we have the Bend traffic, Eastern Oregon traffic. It all goes through our tiny little towns, and we don't have, the support for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's why we need you out like you are this evening, taking time and having comments, because that's where we get that impact, and that's then heard by the county commission, that then in the political process drives those funding decisions. And obviously, transportation and funding, we've seen a lot of that in the media and the news.
Yeah.
There's this needs, and then there's the ability to fund it, and then how do we fund it, and are we willing to fund it as citizens of the state of Oregon? So that's that tension. But
Yeah.
roads always get funded. We wouldn't have all the roads that we have in this state if taxpayers, starting back when we started collecting taxes, didn't pay to get where we have today. So it is a priority process. And just like you're here tonight, Jennifer, making those priorities heard. So both the project team hears it, it gets on the list, and then gets advocated by the board and the lobbyists for Clackamas County to get that funding, be it local funding, like your road tax that you have in Clackamas County, or state funding, or going after potential federal funding. But the first thing is you got to get it on the map, and then advocate to get it as high on that map as possible on the priorities list. And then, really, we're all in it together to really beat the bush to figure out where do we get that funding from, because everybody has needs. And I think probably that's, the individual from ODOT, that's the piece is, they go back to their piggy bank. There's not a whole lot in it. And then, well, do I start on highest priority project of 1600? So how do I work through that? And that's that, unfortunate tension that we have in
Mhm.
society. Yeah, but the first part is doing exactly what you're doing here this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, again, I really appreciate taking the time. I'm going to try my best to attend some of the other meetings because, we drive those roads too.
That's
And
right. That's
just to
right.
kind of see what
Great.
the whole overall picture is. I think it'll really help to make some decisions. So,
Great.
yeah. And Jennifer, just a real quick add-on from me, Jeff at the county. I really appreciate your comments, and I'm sorry to hear, the kind of the feeling of the way that you mentioned the fatalities might have been treated, and I do think that is a really serious piece. What we also try to do as planners is not just be reactive, but try to be proactive, and
hmm.
we want to be prioritizing everything you're seeing and what you know about. One thing we can definitely do is take a closer look at that at these locations we're mentioning tonight, and we also have an effort underway. If we slip into a little bit of an acronym, we might say the TSAP, which is a safety focused action plan. And so
Okay.
we have the ability as well to really zero into severe crashes and fatalities, and influence our partners at ODOT as well. So we can definitely work on that a little bit more, and try to provide a little bit more of um, a partner to you, and that what you're seeing, and really try to look at those as priorities within our county and see what we can do about that. So I'm sorry
Okay.
sorry to hear about your experience there, but it is.
It wasn't, I may have made it sound a little bit
Oh.
more harsh than it was. He definitely had empathy for us, but he was like, we have to look at the facts and figures. And yeah, you had 3 fatalities in a day and a half, but you didn't have any in the 10 years or something like that before that. And so it's the law of averages, right? Um, but one thing that we did bring up that I actually brought up at that meeting and others also talked about was the school zones. And they couldn't do anything about it because that wasn't their purview, I guess. But my son goes to Boring Middle, and it's atrocious. And Kelso grade, they have to wait in their cars along Kelso Road, and like it's just dangerous. All of our schools are on these narrow little 2-lane roads, and it's it's also discouraging to be told that, oh, sorry, hope your kid makes it to school. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Like, I live half a mile from the school, but I will not let my son walk to school because he would have to cross the road at 212 and Ritchie. And that's not happening. Even though it's a controlled intersection, cops run that. I mean, it's awful the amount of people that blow that light. So anyway, I digress. But thank you again. I will definitely be adding comments to that map.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Let's see, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to Jennifer too. That's not an intersection that necessarily directly pertains to Sandy, but that certainly is an area that impacts those that are visiting Sandy because they're, either coming to Sandy or going from Sandy. They're coming through Boring most likely. So that, or going to Gresham. But either way, that's a high impact intersection that impacts our community as well. But the question that I wanted to bring up just briefly is, earlier in this meeting, you indicated that the focus was really on those rural roads that were not within the UGB or the city limits of your incorporated cities. How do you handle county roads that are within an incorporated area? Are you identifying those as the incorporated cities problem, or is that still an item on the county's TSP that would get county funding potentially for those improvements on county roads?
Yeah, yeah, great question, Tyler. So I'm not sure if you or I know each of the cities has been at least invited to the technical advisory committees. But the way in which ultimately is roads that are inside the city are documented in the city's TSP and roads outside in the county's TSP, just so there's not confusion. The two things that we are making sure going forward is one is if there's a transition, so you go from in the city to outside of the city. If you have a 3-lane road trying to match in with a 5-lane, obviously that doesn't work so well. So the coordination in this process is to make sure those thresholds are matched up and to document where there's any disconnects in that. Second part, as the city updates its TSP, and obviously you all went through that relatively recently, is county would be involved in the next update, as they probably were in the last update, to hear feedback and comments on the county facilities. And then when it comes to improving those facilities within the city that are county, they're still owned and maintained by the county, or there may be intergovernmental agreements on how they're maintained. That process will still be done, and then that's a discussion over time between the city and county. Do we want to do a jurisdictional transfer? How do we prioritize those projects? But it's really more of a archiving of let's keep one in one bucket, one in the other. But as far as the funding, that still is a discussion that goes both incorporated and unincorporated. Jeff, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, just simply that we'll make sure and try to follow up specifically, on the Sandy coordination plus others. But our intention is as much of what Mark stated there to, while we are focusing on unincorporated, we really have to make sure that that coordination's happening and that just as I think someone earlier mentioned, the city, city lines and different boundaries that are, mostly invisible to most people, right? So we intend to be good partners and coordinate and make sure that we're matching things up and it's clear what's on which plan and so we can definitely take a closer look, but want to see if this answer this evening is satisfactory to you, and if not, we can work a bit more on it to make sure we do have the coordination in place.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback. I think that does answer the initial question. I just, I struggle with the actual practical application of, great, the city might have funding to do the stretch of road that is, there's a specific intersection that I'm thinking of, but I'm trying not to get too far into the weeds. But great, we might have funding for this, but that intersects then with a county road that's still within our jurisdiction, but maybe doesn't align with the priority level in your TSP. And so now we've just made improvements that essentially dead end, right? Or don't dovetail into the larger scale implementation that we would like to see. So maybe that's just a separate conversation, Jeff, you and I could have to kind of for me to better understand how that actually translates into real world construction projects.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that and appreciate you raising that here. I did want to make sure I saw your note, Kathleen, in the chat as well. I think there might have been another hand up, but then maybe it went down. But wanted to touch on it real quick for your question in the chat of the transportation bill and kind of how that affects our process and everything. And so, um, over the years, of course, there's always perhaps a little bit of up and down about how things are funded, and sometimes they have sunsets, and sometimes different packages come and go a little bit and change. And so where we are now is an interesting place, but in a kind of a short answer, generally speaking, we as a county generally do not um, specifically budget on the hope that something happens. We generally budget around what we feel very confident will happen into the future. And so we are not necessarily, right now experiencing a specific hardship on transportation funding. We could always do more with more, just as everybody else could. And so, if we were to have increased funding, we could deliver more projects and perhaps deliver those quicker. And we could definitely do more with more. However, the way that we have been set up as a county structure and within transportation funding is to not necessarily really just hang our hat on the hope that something might come through in a future year. And so part of this effort as it unfolds, our timing here is the rest of calendar 26 and looking for adoption into 27. There will be a short session at the state level here soon. Right? They kind of may or may not land on something. Hope they do. But at the county, we're not necessarily getting into exactly those details. And I'm not a lobbyist myself and such, so we want to try to find our right balance. We're definitely paying attention, and our part of our county structure is, of course, closer to that. But what we will do as part of this project again is kind of have a financial outlook, and that again that's anticipated funding that we expect to come in, matching that to our needs and projects. And so, in a sense, to oversimplify, and then I'll stop, is, you can imagine we have a big spreadsheet. One of those rows in that spreadsheet that kind of could be turned on and off was the recent HB 3991 or something close to that. What could have been that package that now, looks like it's not going to happen necessarily the same way. And so, we definitely are in a position where we're trying to plan for that in case it does happen. But if it doesn't, we just kind of remove that, and we can be a little fluid. But sorry if that was a longer answer than you wanted, but trying to get a little bit into the
Yeah.
weeds, but not too far.
No, that's great. And I do just want to kind of build on what Tyler said, because, I would say probably Ten Eyck, 362nd, Bornstead Road. I'm trying to think, there's others out there, Furwood. Those are all kind of roads that are either going to schools that are where all the Sandy kids are going. I said Kelso, I think. Anyway, the county often is the ones who end up giving permits to the developers for that. And so I think there's some opportunities to improve coordination when things are going forward on that. And I like the fact that you mentioned, there's possible, we did acquire, not that I want more roads to have to pay for or fix or whatever, but we did acquire parts of 211 there, up to Gunderson Road between 26 and Gunderson, to try to kind of help, make it more possible to reduce speed limits. Because that's all, it's like what Jennifer said, these are all state highways and all, but these are our neighborhoods. And so, we need to have a little bit of reasonable speed limits, and a little bit of control over how the traffic affects us. So I appreciate those options and look forward to kind of working with you. That's a great interactive device you guys have come up with to kind of get input. So I look forward to sitting down with the staff and kind of putting the projects on there. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much for your involvement. And I know want to make sure and look at the clock a little bit here. 5 minutes left. When we respect everyone's time. Nicole, it might have been your hand up. Feel free to chime in here if you wish. We do just want to touch a couple more slides and then stop here, but we wanted to remind you, as we've mentioned, there are some upcoming meetings just like this. And the spirit is these GSA meetings, as we call them, the geographic sub area. They're happening during the window of the open house. So the virtual open house is ongoing. So we definitely want you to take time when you have time to input comments and share ideas. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, anybody else you think would be interested. We ask for your help to kind of get the word out and help us spread the word through your own channels. But we have more meetings coming up this kind of same time slot for the different GSAs around the county, and then a link here, as we've talked about, for the full open house. Next slide. And then, this is now, of course, January. We're going to be coming back with another wave of GSA touch points, so we can have an in-person touch point in late spring, and then another touch point in the winter. And so, this is not your only shot at being involved. And so, welcome your continued input and guidance into our project, and to share as well. So we have a couple bullets here of what we hope to cover at each one of those, where next time we gather in June, we're going to review draft project lists focused here within each GSA for East County, by example, and then look at that feedback on identified projects and priorities. So that would be a draft where we would want your feedback. And then we have a lot of work to do after that. We're going to come back, maybe next December, and kind of have that final touch of, hey, this is starting to land. Here's how it's all coming together before we start to go to our planning commission first, and then our board of county commissioners for adoption into the spring. So you've got a little time, but the earlier the input, the better. And then we want a quick reminder there to sign up for these pieces you've already gotten the word about tonight, and we appreciate your involvement. But have more to come too as well for everybody interested.
Right. Well, I think, Jeff, that's it. Appreciate everybody coming this evening and taking time out. But back to the discussion we had with Jennifer is this is how we did lines on maps and we did funding is starting here at the grassroots level. So appreciate all your time and I'll look forward to you at future meetings. And with that, have a great evening.